I'm willing to bet that a lot of people's phones look exactly like this. Tens of thousands of photos, hundreds if not thousands of videos. If you're watching this video, then you have a device on you the majority of the time that is capable of capturing moments in life to a degree that no generation has been able to before. But have you ever thought about what you're going to do with all that data? Have you considered that the memories on your phone might be really important to people in decades to come? Have you ever thought that the contents of your phone are the most meaningful representation of your life over the last decade? If you haven't, then you're probably thinking about this right now, and this is exactly why I think filmmaking is really important for everyone to know a little bit of. Let me explain. I was pretty lucky growing up. I had a really enjoyable childhood, and we were fortunate enough that my dad owned a video camera. Now, this was the 1980s, so imagine a camera that you'd see on a TV set, shoulder mounted, and that was plugged into what I can only describe as a cereal box sized video player on a strap on a shoulder, and that's what you put tapes in to record onto. Very different to what we are used to now. The other week I was having a mess around in my loft and I came across this box. Now this doesn't contain a pair of Caterpillar boots. It contains a bunch of tapes, and it reminded me how much of my childhood was captured by that big lumbering old piece of technology. Somehow he even managed to get it on a flight to Vancouver as his carry-on luggage, which just blows my mind because this thing was huge. Thankfully, it was replaced by a much smaller model in the 1990s. I'm sure a lot of you have seen those handheld camcorders. In the loft, I also found my old VCR, so I've spent the last few weeks taking these 15 or so tapes and digitizing the first 15 of my formative years. Now, it was in the 15th year that my dad sadly passed away, and with that, the end of the capturing of my youth onto magnetic tape. The tapes were stored and pretty much forgotten about until recently. Now, why is this important to you? Well, my story isn't important to you, but the lessons I've learned from it hopefully will be. Unfortunately, first, I'm going to have to continue my tale of woe, because 10 years after my dad passed away, I also lost my mum. And with her went the hundreds of stories and memories of me and my sister when we were kids. This does get happier, I promise. Fast forward 15 years and I'm married with two boys who are 3 and 6. Two boys who are desperate to hear about what their dad was like when he was their age. Two boys that still aren't really sure why they've only got one set of grandparents or what their other set of grandparents were like. This box of tapes and the photographs we have are the only real record of my past. The only evidence I have of what I was like at their age are these tapes that my dad so meticulously put together. They're the only medium I've got where I'm still able to see snippets of my parents' personalities. 3 weeks ago, I heard my dad's voice for the first time since September 1996. They've become so valuable to me, and now that I've digitized them, I can pass them down to future generations. There will be people alive well beyond me that will one day want to see the contents of these and see what their ancestors were like. No matter who you are, how much family you have, what you do, you have a legacy to preserve. One day, there will be someone that wants to know more about your life and how you spent it. And documenting life through video is the easiest way to do this. As I alluded to earlier, most of us already do this, even non-creatives. We all use our smartphones to take pictures and record videos. We're already preserving those memories. But the key thing to think about here is what to do with them. Given how easy it is for people to take video clips on their phone, the vast majority of people don't know how to pull them together and preserve them for the future. I've got 1,192 video clips on this phone. The oldest one is from 8 years ago, and I'd say about 99% of them are from the last 6 years. So at this rate, by the time I'm 70, I'll probably have, I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 10,000 clips. Then that's just on my phone. I probably record less video on this than most people because I use my cameras. And it's at that point in the future when my kids are potentially likely to have their own kids, and they'll start asking me about what their parents, my kids, were like when they were young. This is where my dad's in-camera editing came into its own, and he probably didn't have much choice, to be honest, given how difficult the technology was to work with. But we have this collection of tapes, organised well, and I know exactly what's on them. There's a lot of stuff that can be cut out, but that's unimportant. It's the general idea of doing it. And the problem we've got now is we're almost limited by having practically unlimited data. There's no reason to go through stuff and delete stuff. We just keep adding and adding and adding to it, which is why we're building up this bank of thousands of videos and photos on our phones. And there's just no real thought about what or if we're going to do anything with them in the future. We just keep going. I don't know about you, but the thought of being 70 and organising through 10,000 video clips on my phone or whatever it'll be we're using in 30 years time, 30 years. Anyway, yeah, the thought of doing that when I'm that old, I don't want to spend my retirement that way, which is why it's important to do now. Organise your videos, edit them together so that you've got year by year highlights. Do one for every year so you can easily look back and say, okay, what did we spend it 2019 doing, for example? And then you've just got something you can pass down to your family or whoever else. Knowing what I've found out over the last few weeks with these videos, people in the future will be so grateful that you do this. So that's the main reason. Legacy, preservation, passing something down. It's so simple, and we all have the capability of doing it. I learned the cruel lesson of how short life can be at a relatively early age. So I am so grateful now to have these memories. Without these, I'd not really have anyone to ask what Christmases were like, what my childhood was like. These have just become priceless to me. And I'm not one to dwell on the past and get sucked into that cycle. But being able to show my kids, this is what Daddy was like when he was 4, 5, 6 years old. This is where we went on holiday. I think that's really important. I used to love watching these videos when I was a child, and my kids love watching the videos of themselves on my phone now. I think it's just something that kids really enjoy seeing, but wouldn't it be better if we could show our children longer highlight reels of the years, like I say, on a proper screen, rather than having them flick through thousands of videos on what's supposed to be a communication device? I'm going to give a few words of warning about this. It's not scary. Do it sooner rather than later, because those numbers are just going to keep going up and up and up. And the longer you leave it, the less likely you're going to be to do it, because you're going to see like all these thousands of videos and just think, no, I'm not doing that. So yeah, it's worth spending the time doing. Once you've edited these clips together, get rid of them. You don't need them on your phone anymore. They are just clogging up space. I mean, I've no idea what sort of energy use the increasing data hoarding of the global population is, but I reckon it's pretty staggering. It's probably a good video idea, that, actually. Make a note. Also, back stuff up, not just onto iCloud or Google Drive. Back it up somewhere at home, physically, onto a drive. Send it to people. If something happens to you, bit morbid this, but if something happens to you and your phone can't be unlocked, that's it. It's all gone. It's all gone if it's stored on there. Don't let that be the case. Make it accessible so that the people you think might want to be able to see it can see it. It doesn't have to be public, but just make it accessible to them. I think I also need to touch on this because I've definitely done this as a parent, and beware living some of the best, or what should be the best, memories of your life through the screen of a phone or a camera or an iPad. I remember in 2014 when I was in California with my wife, and we went to Yosemite, and we were sat just near the bottom of Yosemite Falls, and a guy got off a bus with an iPad in front of his face, and he walked down the path towards Yosemite Falls, and his face never left this iPad. He looked down, reviewed his clip, turned around, got back on the bus. He didn't once look at Yosemite Falls, which is an incredible waterfall. Didn't once look at it with his own eyes. It's like, why? What's that clip ever going to be good for now? He's missed out on probably one of the most memorable things he'll ever see to record a clip. Don't do that. You can record and look at the same time. My wife often says that she feels like she wasn't present for enough of what happens with the kids because she's trying to film it. So just don't worry about filming everything all the time. Live life. And there's the flip side of that as well. How many moments have you seen ruined because you've gone to get your phone out to take a picture or to film it? I know my kids often say, no pictures, and that's it, the moment's gone. And maybe think about what these clips are going to be used for in the future. One of the main things I've noticed by watching through these is how many views were recorded. And that's slightly disappointing, but I know I do the same thing. I want to see the moments where I'm doing something or where my parents are doing something and the interactions between us. Whereas 80 to 90% of what's on these tapes are just views of where we were, like Disney World or somewhere in France. It's like, well, yeah, my dad wasn't to know that because the internet wasn't really around when he passed away, but I can see that whenever I want now. The views aren't something we're going to want to look back on in years to come. It's the interactions with the people. It's the people that matter. So record the people, not where you are. Just also think about what you're doing with this as well. Turn it on its side. In my opinion, video is meant to be seen in a landscape orientation. If you film everything portrait and some of the stuff's landscape, it's going to make a bit of a mess of things. I'd really advocate filming that way round rather than that way round. That's just me. Who knows? We might have TVs on our wall that way around. God, I hope not. But it might happen. Who knows? And finally, just document more. Document your life, your family's life. We can just talk to cameras now and just record what's going on in our lives. So use that to kind of communicate important moments to potential future generations. I wish I had videos of my dad talking to camera. It'd be amazing to be able to have that. And I'm hoping when I'm a bit older, my kids will be able to watch these videos of me doing what I do. Capture your parents, the older family members you have. There's things in people's heads that aren't always going to be there. I saw the Alex Ferguson documentary last year, and one of the things he said was when he had his brain hemorrhage, he was worried that he'd suffer from memory loss. So one of the reasons he made this documentary was to get everything out of his head so that it was preserved. All these memories were preserved, because once it's gone, it's gone. It's a bit morbid to think of, but it will happen. It doesn't need to be amazing footage. You don't need to learn how to be a filmmaker. But I do think you need to think about this a bit more, as I've outlined, and just do what you can to preserve your legacy for the future. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'd appreciate it if you'd like this video, if you've enjoyed what I've said, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. I've put some links in the description for potentially useful apps for editing these clips together and links to good online storage as well. So these might be useful in whatever you decide to do with your footage, but please, please, please do something with it. I'll see you next time.